Today we're gonna be diving into one of the most talked about debates in the paddock, Dunlop versus Pirelli. Why am I even using a mic? I don't need this shit. So let's break down their differences by comparing compound, carcass, grip, and feedback for each tire individually. I guarantee you that by the end of this video, you will know which tire is gonna be the perfect one for your riding style. And even if you're an advanced rider, you might wanna stick around because I give some insider info about slip targets. All right, let's start with construction. Dunlop slicks use a stiffer carcass design, especially in the front. This means that the tire won't flex as much during the ride, contributing to excellent stability. Basically, the bike is gonna feel more planted, right? You see this tire? It's hard. I can almost sit on top of it, and it's not gonna, I went sideways, but it's not really gonna fold on me, right? Because it has a hard carcass. On the other hand, Pirelli runs a softer carcass. That means way more flex, more feel, especially when trail braking into a corner. You see, I'm melting, oh my God. Now, when I say more feel, I don't want you to confuse it with feedback. Those are two different things, and we will get into that later in this video. But before that, we have to talk about grip and compound for each tire. By the way, if you're using slicks, I'm gonna assume you're using tire warmers. It is the best way to get all of the performance out of them, okay? You see, when it comes to grip, the Pirelli SC compounds heat up really fast and offer tons of mechanical grip right away. They're incredibly confidence-inspiring. Now the Dunlops right here, they need to be completely heat soaked in order to get the best performance out of them. But once they're up to temperature, they offer some serious longevity and consistency. Think of it like foreplay. She needs 10 minutes of foreplay, she needs like 45 minutes of foreplay, especially at race pace. Cool. Now remember what I told you earlier about feedback? Well, let's break down the behavior of each tire individually, front and rears, for both brands. Now, if you're new to racing and track riding in general, you might be thinking, bro, they're both rubber tires. How different can they be? But the reality is there's a huge difference, and it directly influences the riding style. I will use my own words and experience to try and explain what this behavior feels like, okay? Now, when it comes to the fronts, the Dunlops, because of the harder carcass, they like to keep their shape. So you can really push hard on the brakes without flexing the profile of the tire into a square, which means you can still turn the bike a decent amount even if you're 100% on the brakes. The Pirellis, however, are a much softer carcass, which means that the tire will tend to square up when going really hard on the brakes, which in consequence will not let you turn in as easier because the profile of the tire is not gonna be round anymore, it's actually gonna collapse on itself. Now, this is not a negative thing necessarily, it just means you have to ride them differently. While on the Dunlops you can have a more point and shoot style by braking later and harder, the Pirellis you will have to get on the brakes just a bit earlier and be smoother. But as you approach the apex of the corner during trail braking, that's when the edge grip of this one right here shines. As you become better and better, you will realize that the tires speak to you through the suspension, up into the handlebars of the motorcycle, and therefore into your hands. The Dunlops will give you extremely precise and clear feedback. If there's a groove in the floor, you will feel it. If you're at the limit of the grip and you're about to lose the front tire, it will start to do little skips, sort of like a little shatter in the steering. The Pirelli right here won't be as precise when it comes to communicating. It comes with a softer carcass. It adapts to the asphalt. It won't tell you exactly what's going on under them. However, I don't know what it is. It is incredibly confidence inspiring when you're at the edge of the lean angle, and these tires, you can just know that they're not gonna give out on you. They have so much grip that as you approach the limit of the front, you will feel sort of like a little wobble that might feel weird at the beginning, but in the back of your head, you know that little wobble is the tire adapting to the asphalt and the road surface, and that little wobble means grip. Let me give you 3 seconds to gather all your thoughts before we talked about the rear. Cool, now the rear. Again, let me remind you, these behaviors are largely due to the bones of the tire. You see, I use the word bones to not use carcass again, because I've said the word carcass so many times throughout this video. God damn it, I said carcass again. During hard braking, the weight of the motorcycle is transferred to the front. And then the rear tire right here is gonna be pretty much unloaded, which sometimes can cause the rear tire to step out and slide due to the engine braking, right? This is called negative slip. It happens due to the speed of the rotation of the rear tire being less than the rotation of the front tire. Under negative slip, the Dunlop tends to step out a little bit more often. The Pirelli, on the other hand, does a great job of maintaining the line without stepping out as often. I don't really know the exact reason for that, but if I had to speculate, it would probably have something to do with the ability of the sidewalls to flex side to side. Let's get to the most important part, the rear tire behavior while on the gas, exiting the corner. The Dunlop will feel more planted, and anytime you break traction, you will definitely know because it's a little abrupt. It will be very evident that the tire steps out and overspins. Sort of like this. Let's say you're exiting a corner. Oh, wow. Now the Pirelli, on the other hand, will tend to spin more. However, it will brake and regain traction in a much softer way. Now this will make the rear of your motorcycle feel a little wobbly, but that's just because the sidewalls of the tire are moving side to side. Something like this. Oh, you see the difference? It's much more controllable with the Pirelli. Now you want to know a real secret about professional racing and motorcycle tires? You see, all rear tires need a certain amount of spin to have the optimal acceleration. Too much spin while you're going forward and you will lose time and you will shred the tire. Too little spin and you will be leaving time on the table and not accelerating as hard. This is common knowledge. The amount of spin is controlled by super advanced ECUs and traction control systems. This is known in the racing industry as the slip target percentage. That number is calculated by the difference in speed between the rear tire and the front tire. For example, if the rear is doing 110 miles an hour and the front is doing 100 miles an hour right before the traction control kicks in and it doesn't let it spin any more than that, then what's our percentage slip in this case? Exactly, 10%. Now you might be asking what the best slip target number is, right? Well, that's the million-dollar question. You see, the slip percentage is not exactly the best number. It is different for every tire. And it is largely influenced by the conditions around you. But I wouldn't be telling you this if I wasn't gonna give you a little bit of insider info, right? Let me go inside. You see, under ideal conditions, the Pirelli likes a slip target between 12 and 14%. At that point, the tire will give you the best acceleration possible. Anything less or anything more, and you might be leaving time on the table. But what about the Dunlops? Well, the Dunlops seem to be a bit more indifferent to spin. It will provide almost the same acceleration past a certain amount of spin. It doesn't matter a lot if it's 8% slip or 14% slip. What matters in this case is the actual rider style. Do they ride a souped-up S1000RR with a lot of horsepower and they like to drift the rear in order to turn the motorcycle coming out of the corners? Then you'll probably run those numbers a little bit in the higher end. But what if you ride a nimble bike and you want to take advantage of that agility? Then you'll probably run those numbers down so you don't slide as much. You might be asking, how do I know this information? I don't. In fact, don't believe anything I say. I'm just an amateur racer. What do I know? So let's go back to the good stuff. All right, so our next talking point is going to be durability. Oh my God, oh, whoa, whoa, what the f was that? Okay, durability. Dunlops are often praised for holding up over multiple heat cycles, especially at high temperatures. That's why they're very popular in endurance racing. Pirellis, while sticky and grippy, they will fall off a bit quicker. You know, word around the paddock is that on a 12-lap race, the Pirellis will be about a second faster at the beginning, but then will fall off on a curve, while the Dunlops, even though they start slightly slower, will keep a much more consistent line throughout the race. So by the end of it, you will see that both have overall the same times. Ooh, here's another point. Pricing. Pricing can vary, but the Pirellis are often a little bit more expensive, depending on compound and size, that is. The Dunlops tend to be a little bit more
budget friendly, especially for club racers that are buying in sets. But honestly, if you got money to buy new slicks, dude, the 10% price difference isn't probably gonna be a selling point for you. What is more relevant is trackside support, and I cannot emphasize on this enough. I seriously encourage you to find out what vendors are on your racetrack and consider that as one of the points to make your decision on which tires to use, okay? What do I personally prefer? You know, Dunlop front is a must for me. I really like the feel and the feedback that it gives me, but on the rears, I can pretty much switch back and forth. The Pirellis are super grippy and I really enjoy sliding out of the corners, but the Dunlop gives me much more lifetime. Also, I'm usually running tires that my friends give me, you know? I'm poor, I cannot buy new tires anymore. If you want me to tell you that one is better over the other, I cannot do that. As you can see from everything we've talked about so far, they both have its pros and cons. But what I can tell you is that if you are a more flowy rider, likes to carry more corner speed, and usually ride in colder conditions, Pirelli is gonna be the one for you. On the other hand, if you're a crazy maniac like me who likes to brake at the last possible second, hard as a motherfucker, then Dunlops will treat you great. Also, they'll last a little bit longer, for sure. There is no wrong choice, just the riding. There's no wrong choice, just the right tire for your riding style, track conditions, and goals. Whether you go with Dunlop or Pirelli, they are both race proven and podium worthy, okay? Let me know in the comments what kind of slicks do you guys run, and if this video helped you decide at all which one will you run in the future and why. Subscribe, and don't forget, if you're gonna crash, make sure to do it in front of the photographer and tag me. I want to see that video.